This is Right On Radio, the voice of restoration in fallen Europe.
Welcome to Right On Radio. My name is Daniel Friberg.
And I'm John Morgan.
And I'm Jonas Dier.
The topic of today's program is Red Ice Radio, who is currently celebrating their 10-year anniversary. And joining us today, we have Henrik Palmgren, who's originally from Sweden, actually from my own hometown, basically. And he's currently living in the US and the host of the immensely successful Red Ice Radio and a truth seeker in general. Welcome, Henrik.
Well, thank you so much. Pleasure to be here, gentlemen. Thank you for the invite.
I would like to ask you a little bit, what prompted you to start Red Ice about 10 years ago? And could you also tell us a little bit briefly about your history so far?
All right. Yeah, sure. I mean, I started a website called Red Ice in about 2002, 2003. And at that point, it was actually something very different. It was more of an collaboration between me and a friend. We were doing some graphics and video projects and stuff like that, and we wanted somewhere to share that. And I had actually used the name prior to that as kind of a play on Norse mythology, I guess, in terms of, you know, fire and ice, you know, red, heat and everything else, and then ice in the opposition to that, blue, cold, whatever, coming from this idea out of Norse mythology of these, you know, that the world came into existence in the gap between fire and ice. Anyway, so I started it in 2002, 2003, and slowly kind of moved over to posting more news and stuff like that as 9/11 had, or as I started uncovering or finding out more information about what actually happened during 9/11. So I just really dove into the cauldron of truth seeking and waking up to a ton of different topics, really, and looking into anything that was unorthodox, really, things that you're not supposed to know about, things you're not supposed to talk about. I started looking into the geopolitical game, the conspiracy, if you will, behind the American foreign policy. Just had a really big appetite for anything hidden or secret. And then I got into metaphysics. I was really into aliens and UFOs, even New Age stuff and all that kind of stuff. So I was all over the map, and still am to a certain degree. I'm still, interested in a lot of topics, although obviously the priorities have shifted radically in the last, I'd say, 3 or 4 years or so. Because this is really the emergence of the early days of alternative media. So I was kind of on that bandwagon. But anyway, to make a long story short, I did later in 2006 get an opportunity to actually be a correspondent, I think it was, on another radio show that a friend in America had. And it turned out that I was given a show on their network eventually. And they actually had phone call-ins and stuff like that, and was very technically difficult. So I'd been into music previously, so me and my brothers decided to actually start doing the recordings ourselves instead, and that's really kind of how things began. We, as you said, Daniel, we're coming up on actually 10 years, so we've been doing this a decade in April. It's just unbelievable how long it's been going, and how many topics and how many things we've flown through as well. It's amazing.
And actually, it's quite a coincidence as well, because the Scandinavian think tank Multiple is actually also celebrating its 10-year anniversary. Not this month, next month. So
all right, there we go.
It seems we started about the same time, which
that's right. Yeah.
It's a coincidence. So,
Henrik, I suspect that your journey was somewhat similar to mine, because the way I first encountered Red Ice was more through the stuff on esotericism that you were doing. Like, I remember one of the first interviews that you had that I listened to was with Colin Wilson, who has been a hero of mine for over 20 years now, and.
Right. Yeah.
So I was quite surprised, but also pleasantly surprised that you ended up going in the same direction that I did, into what we might term the alternative right, which I guess is more your emphasis these days. But I'm wondering if like me, you kind of see your political views and your other interests and beliefs in other areas as kind of being inseparable.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's really important, but it's interesting to have gone that way to come to these topics. I think there's a lot of things you can carry with you, and if there is a criticism that I would have of the alt-right and new right, it would be in some regards, not everybody, of course, I'm generalizing here, but there's some regards to kind of a lesser emphasis on some of the spiritual matters, and when you do bring up some of the ideas of esoteric occult things, and some people run screaming in the opposite direction. Maybe true for conspiracy too. I would say that some people are very, they confuse a ridiculous conspiracy theory with actual people conspiring of running a country into the ground when it comes to its foreign policy and stuff like that. But it's good. It's good that we have that level of difference, if you will, amongst our ranks, where we can bring a lot of different things to the table. But everything I've gone through is nothing that I'm ashamed of, or nothing I would ever backpedal on. I'm really proud of what we've done and all the topics that we've gone through. And although I wouldn't say I believe in everything I've covered, I've done it for the sake of investigating these things, because they've just been a personal interest of mine to see what is actually true. Is there something to them? Should we look into it further? And at least I can say, been there, done that. So,
At what time can you say that sort of the emphasis shifted for you?
I would say, sorry, I'm going to finish that.
Go on. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would say probably. See, this is the thing. It's despite the fact that I didn't cover much of it, in the degree in the frequency that I do now. I did cover things on Zionism and multiculturalism all the way back in 2010. We did a series with a few different guys. It was after I think I mentioned this to you already, on your show. So sorry for repeating myself here, but
sure.
It was the Barbara Specter video that came out, and that actually really took me in a different direction immediately. Very interesting of looking into why that was, and again get a reawakened sense of my Swedish identity, my ethnicity, my background, and really trying to understand why there was such an adamant war on white Europeans. So that was there kind of in the early days, but it wasn't until later that we began cycling in, if you will, more and more of those kinds of shows. That really changed was probably late 2013, 2014 on a more recurring frequency. But I've been aware of it for a long time. I've been into revisionism ever since the start. We published articles on it on the website and stuff like that. It was just that we cycled in more metaphysics and more UFO things and esoteric topics. So it was like a lot of different things for a long time. And maybe it's a bit more a concerted effort to try to solve our more immediate problems as things are right now on the website.
What do you think of the possible connection between the kind of esotericism you mentioned and, for lack of a better term, we might call the alt-right? Because, for me, I really think to try to have what I might call like a traditionalist politics without some sort of spiritual or esoteric basis behind it, to me is kind of hollow. Would you agree with that, or what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think to a large degree that many of our problems are rooted in the fact that we don't have this spiritual component, esoteric component, something higher, something that is metaphysical. We as Westerners, many of us anyway, have become, atheists. We have become into the rawness of science, scientificism, and although there's of course great value in these things, I think there's something that has gone missing. I mean, I'm personally have started in looking into our pre-Christian past in Scandinavia and try to understand that better, and I've really identified with that, and I'm really drawn to a lot of those things. Doesn't mean that I have a problem with Christians or anything like that, so I just want to mention that, but it's something that just appeals to me. So I think that there's a huge component to what we're doing, that we need that spiritual element to try to anchor our issues, our identity into something which is higher than ourselves. A lot of other people have that, yes. and it gives them a sense of almost, to a certain degree, whether it's true or not, it gives them a sense of a supernatural recognition, right? That they have this idea that God is on our side, or the gods is on our side, and we are righteous in what we do. If we lack that, if we miss that aspect of it, I think we become much more vulnerable to a certain extent.
Yes, I agree, absolutely.
Yeah, so do I. What can you say? I think we were stronger when we actually still sort of kept the Christian faith, and without going into sort of a Christian pagan kind of argument, because I don't think there's any point in doing that. But we've become weaker since we became secularized. There's absolutely no doubt about that.
Yeah, I agree.
What's your take on Evola and the traditionalists, Henrik?
I really need to do a bit more research on that. I'm ashamed to say that I haven't looked into that as much as I wanted to. I was very interested in the kind of some of the occult spirituality of the National Socialist period for a while. One of my favorite documentaries was Occult History of the Third Reich. Although of course they spun that obviously in a very, very highly negative way, and in a way that they try to demonize it and say this is utterly ridiculous and preposterous and stuff like that. But I really appreciated the work of Guido von List and Eckhart Tolle, and a lot of those esotericists, and I think there's a lot of value in that. But actually, one area where I'm lacking, and where I actually need to look into a lot more, is Evola and some of these other gentlemen that have been more on our side, if you will. So that's something that I still have to do.
Mm-hmm. Before I myself became sort of more politically engaged, I was more into actually René Guénon and Evola and Fridtjof Schuon and those people, I must admit.
We had I forget what his name is now, but we did a show about René Guénon, and I always forget what the gentleman's name is that we had with us. He's kind of an expert on that. Maybe you guys remember what his name is. I would have to look in the look in the archives again. But anyway, there's some great work there. So I would agree, Jonas.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's the starting point for a lot of people, traditionalism and the esoteric more general. I mean, not for everybody, because there's definitely some people I know who consider that to be kind of a distraction from the real issue. But I think for people like us, that was, when you kind of realize that it used to be the binding force of civilization and also of, people's individual lives. And now it's evaporated and been replaced by this horrible, plastic consumer culture. I think that's the basis for a lot of people. And even Colin Wilson, who you had on many years ago when he was still with us, he was never religious in the conventional sense, but there's an essay he wrote about Hitler back in the 1970s, and he's of course he wasn't a fascist, but he comments at one point that the problem with liberalism is that it won the war, but they offer no vision to replace the one that the National Socialists had. So he said, right. The problem is that liberalism has defeated this, this sort of last Western ideology that was based on myth, but it hasn't proposed any myth of its own in its place. So, we're just kind of drifting. I thought that was a very good observation. So that seems to be a kind of a unifying idea among people of our inclination, is that there's a very vital element missing from Western civilization.
Well, I mean, materialism is certainly a curse. I think we can all agree on that.
Absolutely.
I would agree.
Yeah. So, Henrik, thank you for that background story about how Red Eyes came into fruition and how you progressed throughout the years. Could you tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now and what you plan for the future?
Yeah, certainly. And by all means, if there's something you guys want to know about the history that I didn't tell about, just let me know. But that's just the brief version of it. There's obviously a ton more things to talk about that, but that's kind of the overview. But anyway, so what we're doing right now is I'm pretty excited about it. It's going to be the next step in the family of shows, if you will, that Red Eyes has been doing. We've been adding on things not every year, far from it. We wish we could keep up with it, but we do three shows a week, and one of those, sometimes every other week, is a Radio 314. That's the latest edition. But now we're going to add onto it a TV show, a live TV show, or a live stream, I guess you could call it. And we've been building up this in the studio here the last few months now. I've been doing some research and whatnot. So we wanted to get something which is a little bit more interactive with the audience. There's actually one area where we've been lacking, really. We've been poor in that department. We hadn't had that kind of interaction with our audience. We never done live shows before, and I think we're missing something out there. And I think now is a great time to do it, to open it up to have some participation and whatnot. But it's a bigger plan that we have in the works, which is really to at the end of the road really build a TV channel that actually can compete to a certain extent with some of the mainstream coverage. And this is, of course, a long term. I realize what an endeavor that is. I realize how much work that is. I realize realize how much time would go into doing something like that. So I'm not trying to, jump in too deep, right away here. But initially, what we're hoping to do is to reach out really to our audience as well, and to the network of people that is already out there, including people who also have their own shows and whatnot, and make them aware of the fact that we want to try to do something where we can report on things that's happening. We're seeking for correspondents and reporters and everything else that actually can patch into our studio live, right? So, an example would be, let's say that the Cologne thing happened, right? And we actually had an opportunity to start up the live feed, or the day after it's happened, when the news story broke. Let's assume that we have 2 or 3 listeners that are actually in Cologne, or they're close by and they can travel to it. They would be able to patch into our studio with their cell phone these days, right? They wouldn't even have to have a professional camera and a transmitter that does it online. Or you can do that too, of course, but in this case, it's so easy to do it. So what we want to try to do is to really reach out to the network of friends and listeners that we already have out there, and see if there's a way that we can consolidate our efforts. We as a media outlet obviously don't have the funds to send a reporter to the site as CNN does, or as Fox does, right? And even if this entails people pre-recording video material and sending that to us so we can actually get footage from it. Or let's say that the Brussels attacks occurred. Maybe there's people who were close by or something. Anything really. These stories can go anywhere. It doesn't have to be geopolitics and the recent emergent news and terrorist attacks and stuff like that. It can be anything really. But that's just to kind of paint an idea of what's doable and what's possible. So what we're going to do is, the last of April 30th, we're going to do a 10-year anniversary radio show, and it's live video show, and it's going to be a marathon broadcast, right? So it's going to go for several hours. We haven't outlined the entire schedule yet, but we're going to bring on some guests. We're going to take some callers. We have a couple of different segments that we want to get to. I am going to talk a bit more in depth about the history of Red Eyes Radio and go through that a little bit, and then I really also want to engage with the audience and talk in much greater detail about what I just mentioned to you guys now, about what actually is doable these days with the technology of what we can do if we have that network in place. To a certain extent, I want it to become everyone's channel that where people can contribute material to it. I mean, obviously we will still be the producers of it. We will be the editors of it and decide at the end of the day what goes or not on the show, right, on the channel. But I want to send out an invite really of people who want to participate and take part and do whatever they can, however small part in fighting that fight and starting to offer something to the mainstream, which actually can give our people a voice, if you will, and really have our perspective presented. So that's a long-term goal. So there's a lot of components to this, a lot of things that could be said about this, really. But that's really kind of the main outline of that. I don't know if that makes sense. I've been so deep into figuring all these things out, including the technical details lately. So I feel that I'm so close to it. So tell me if I'm missing the forest for all the trees, if you will.
Actually, you're perfectly clear, and I'm really looking forward to this interesting initiative, and it's
me too.
I mean, it's very clear that the Red Eyes project is part of the alternative media, the rise of alternative media in a broader sense, and you're kind of spearheading it, especially in terms of technology. And I hope that Right On could do something similar at some point in the future. We're not there yet, but that's certainly something we should consider. And I can also say
consider mimicking.
We need as many outlets as possible, obviously. I mean, that's clear, right? And the more I do feel, I mean, sure, there's maybe a saturation at some point, but the more the merrier, really. The more we are loud about it, the more we get it out there, the more likely it is that people stumble across our point of view and stuff. So I'm all for it. It's good. We need it.
I wish everyone would have that sort of
yeah.
view. But actually, it's true. I mean, we're very, very far from the point of saturation, since our market is growing with every day. I mean, it's growing more rapidly than we can expand. So the more alternative media outlets, the better at the moment, because we haven't even nearly saturated the market yet. So, and of course we all have our special profiles and so forth. I'm sure people listening to Red Eyes Radio have time to listen to Right on Radio as well. It's not like it takes that much time. I mean, what they should do is to listen less to the mainstream radio and watch less television and focus on the alternative media instead. And
yep, that's right.
And by doing that, I mean, we haven't even, I think we haven't even begun to saturate the market yet. Anyways, it's time for a music break, and we'll continue after the break with some further discussions about Red Eyes, but also about the Donald Trump phenomenon and what is going on American universities. But first, we're going to listen to a song called Heimat Kinder Revolution by the German neofolk project von Tronstahl. So talk to you after the break.
Arctos is currently holding a Kickstarter campaign to fund the translation of 3 of the French New Right author Guillaume Fay's works into English: Archaeofuturism 2.0, Understanding Islam, and Controversy in Society. Please see the program description for a link to details about the campaign and about how you can be among the first to receive the books when they are published.
And there we are back from the break, and you just listened to Heimat Kinder Revolution by von Tronstadt. We're talking to Henrik Palmgren from Red Ice Radio, and during this second half of the podcast, we're going to discuss some other more political topics. So let's start with the Donald Trump phenomenon. Henrik, what is? I mean, there's a lot of interest going on in Europe regarding Donald Trump, and since you're living in the US, you probably have some interesting perspectives that we don't have. So yeah, please give us your take on what's going on regarding Donald Trump.
Sure, yeah, I do spend a little bit of time every year over here, and have the ability to be over here a little bit when I go back and forth between Sweden and America. But I have actually been watching some of the mainstream channels. I have made it a task to watch CNN and Fox while here, and it's been very interesting to watch this. The way that the media has been dealing with this phenomena, really, of what's happening right now. But what I think has happened is, I think Trump announced it. Was it June last year or something? He was announcing he was running for president, or it's almost been a year, I think. And initially, I have to say, I didn't take it seriously at all. I thought it was like,
neither did I have to say,
just a joke. What's going on with this or whatever. But as time has progressed, and I've actually listened to more and more full talks. There's a really good YouTube channel, Right Side Broadcasting, that actually broadcasts all the talks that he does live. And I've been making a habit of trying to tune into as many of those as possible, just to get an idea of, like, is he genuine? Is this for real? Is this just another puppet of the establishment that are trying to do something different and throw in a curveball to kind of throw us off or whatever? I think all those questions are valid, to be honest, considering the history of American politics and the charade of everything. But I have to say that as time has progressed, I have become more and more intrigued by Donald Trump, and at this point, I think he is definitely genuine. I think he's doing this because he truly is concerned. I think the way the media has been trying to spin it is that somehow he's a megalomaniac. He's trying to do this to increase his brand name. He's they're trying to argue that he almost is the establishment because of the fact that he has a lot of money. He's a billionaire. But it's been clear to me for months now that the media has been doing everything they can to demonize Trump and to destroy his campaign. Every day there's some new kind of controversy. There's some new issues, whether it's his hatred for women or his this and that and the other. They always bring something up, and they always try to twist it in such a way so that the people will end up trying to lose faith basically in the fact that he can manage to pull it off. But he's still in the lead. He still gets the most votes on the Republican side. And if you actually watch some of the talks, the live speeches that he does when he travels around in the primaries and stuff like that, it's really funny because one of the most things that people actually cheer about, where they actually scream and are most engaged, is when Trump is talking about building the wall. So it's like that's really the focus and the attention, that he's saying something that no one else have ever said. He's in that regard, he is unhinged. He is uncontrollable by the classical sense in terms of how these candidates have been previously working with the media and with the establishment to push their agenda and to keep everything very, very locked down and controlled. But I think he's very much a candidate that they don't have control over, and I think it's evidenced by the fact how the media treats it, and also the way that the Republican Party have been treating him, and the way that the fact that he's reinvigorated the whole election cycle in a way that no one ever has before. He's brought out more people to go vote in the primaries. He has managed to bring over tons of Democrats actually over to the Republican side, and it seems that these Republican cucks are more interested in having someone which they can put the stamp of approval of conservative on than the fact that he's been able to reinvigorate the process and bring new people into the party. And it's just it's beyond silly, really, the way that they have demonized Trump in the media, and the way that they're trying to undermine everything he's doing. I think the latest thing that happens is they're in Colorado. They started handing over delegates to Cruz without there even being polls or an election about it yet. So it's very interesting to see how they're seeking to prevent him from getting the delegates that he needs. What is it, 1237 or something? I mean, he's definitely the closest, but we'll see what happens. But the again, to make a long story short, I think he's genuine. I think he really actually cares about shifting things around and turning things into a better direction. And whether he himself just has a personal drive on top of that, whether he really is a megalomaniac or a huge ego, whatever. In this regard, I think it might be a good thing because he is adamant about winning. And I think the phenomena overall is bigger than this now. There's so many people that are projecting things upon him that actually goes outside of even the things that he touches upon, which is quite encouraging. Well, we don't know where he is on the foreign policy issue. We don't know where he is on certain issues. He might be. It's a gamble. It might turn out to be a worse disaster in some aspects, maybe even in certain within certain policies. But I'm kind of the opinion that I'd rather take something that upsets the whole apple cart, the whole establishment, than just sit around and do the same things over and over and nothing ever move forward. So I don't know what you guys think, but I think it's a good thing that he's running, and I do hope that he gets in to just for the fact of seeing what actually is doable. If nothing else, if he can build a wall, that's progress, right?
Well, even if he achieves nothing, I mean, he could hardly. I mean, that would be better than what either of his rivals are going to do, which would make things much worse. So to me, it's not even, I hope that he might actually, govern well if he wins. But it's almost more the fact that he just represents the end of the Republican establishment, which, the piece of evidence that clinched it for me was about 2 weeks ago, Dick Cheney was being interviewed and he was praising Hillary Clinton and said she was the most capable of all of Obama's advisors and that she would make a very good president. And I was like, oh, okay, so here we see evidence that the Republican establishment would actually rather see Hillary in than Trump. So this idea that he's somehow being used, that doesn't really that doesn't fly for me anymore.
I think they would have promoted him in a different way. I mean, I think it's just clear that the stabs they're taking is just there to undermine what he's doing, because it ends up about all these petty issues. If they would have, if CNN would have done their job and nitpicking at any of the other candidates that would, as they do on Trump, there'd have been a tremendous amount of dirt exposed on them right now. So the only thing I wish is that Trump was a little bit organized, if you will. As I'm watching his speeches, it's clear that he's kind of scatterbrained. He kind of goes on about things that is, oh, let me tell you a story, and then this, and we're up in the polls.
People
and
like that, though.
They do.
I think it makes it more relatable in a way. I mean, it's not exactly the kind of thing that appeals to me, but I kind of understand what he's doing the more I watch him.
Well, the thing is, though, he has a tremendous opportunity to blow the whole lid wide open on the. I think he already has to a certain extent, but there's even more that he could do. I mean, he talks about certain things, like, for example, the Goldman Sachs connection to Cruz and Cruz's wife, on the board of Goldman Sachs, and I think she's part of Council of Foreign Relations. They're deeply embedded into the establishment, but there are things that he can pull out about these people, the things that he could mention, as opposed to talking about hand sizes or something like that, and spend some time really doing some hard damage. And that's the only thing I would say. But see, that points to the fact that he's genuine. He just basically does this off the cuff. He just does whatever he feels like doing, and for some reason it's working so far, which is good. But it could be even more concerted. He could get people involved that actually provides work and research to him. But I mean, I guess his primary interest is to get elected and try to fix things, as opposed to just breaking things down on the political end of American politics or something. Not sure.
But at the same time, wasn't he at AIPAC's annual meeting and then really sort of sucked up to that establishment just a couple of weeks ago?
That was the only time, I think, as well, they'd actually done a teleprompted speech at AIPAC, which was interesting. I have to say, though, I think there was a speech he did right before he went to AIPAC where he talked about the fact that Israel should start paying their own bills. There are huge contradictions within the policy or within his message. I think at this point, I mean, think about it. He's in New York. He's in the business world, realty in New York. He knows. I mean, he knows what's going on. He knows that he has to do these things. He knows that he has to jump through the hoops hoops. Again, we don't know if he's genuine about that. If he is he just playing the game to try to get in and then fix things, or is it really genuine? I mean, we have the Ivanka, issue. She's married to a Jew. Their kids are Jewish. They're very well embedded into that community. So he might very well have their interest at heart as well. But he has said America first, and he's trying to run that policy. And I think he's genuine about that. I just think he knows he needs to jump through these hoops to get done what he needs to get done. But it's certainly an element of worry. But I wonder if it would be worse with Trump or Ted Cruz or Hillary Clinton.
Well, obviously Trump is the best choice here, and as you say, this is something that you have to do. You have to jump through those hoops to be eligible, basically. And I was actually positively surprised by the statements he made before the IPAC meeting when he said that his position was that Israel should pay the U.S. for the protection and help they received all over the years.
They should.
They should, of course.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that. And this is probably the first time a U.S. presidential candidate has said something like that.
Yeah.
And that
surprises me. I didn't know that, I must say. So yeah, that is quite impressive.
He's alluded to these things in different ways that he knows, and he says one thing over there, another over here, which is surprising also that I haven't seen the mainstream media use this against him, at least not on that particular issue. I think it was really interesting too, just to bring up another candidate, that the only one that didn't attend the AIPAC meeting was Bernie. Why is that? Why didn't he go, considering his tribal connections?
Well, I actually haven't read about. I'm sure there must be articles about why he made that decision, but
maybe he already has the stamp of approval because of his connection, so he doesn't even have to go. Maybe that's why.
Exactly. I mean, if Bernie Sanders was not Jewish, he would have gone there. I'm quite sure of that.
Yeah.
But since he is, he can get away with it, which the other candidates just can't. So I don't put that much weight into that, and I still don't like Bernie Sanders more than I did before, which wasn't a lot, by the way. After that,
I think it would be better to get Bernie in than it would be Hillary. And I know some people might be shocked at that, but just for the fact
Jonas and I agree.
There's no doubt. Yeah.
I think it would be the most favorable situation would be to have Bernie Sanders run against Trump. I think that'd be hilarious. That would be the ideal situation. But I do think that what they're trying to do
is that a pun, actually?
Which pun? Remind me again. I didn't even know what I said there.
No, hilarious Clinton. I was just
hilarious Clinton. Oh, there you go. Okay, yeah. I think that what they're going to do, what they're going to try to strive for, is they're going to make sure that Cruz gets in. They're going to snub in some way this from Trump, right? If it's a contested convention, they're going to give it to someone else. If it's just the fact that they're going to in some way give Cruz more delegates, they're going to do everything they can to keep Trump out. But so what I think they want to do is put Cruz up against Hillary, and at that point, I think she will win. Unfortunately, that's the pick of the establishment. They want Hillary to get in there. She'll be a disaster and much more of the same and worse.
We're getting near the end, and as with every other guest, we would like to offer you the opportunity to plug some of your stuff, recommend some websites, and I mean obviously your own website and any other projects, and in general, any last words from you, Henrik? Please.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Well, the main website is redicecreations.com. We're actually going to shorten the URL a little bit here too. We're working on a complete overhaul website redesign. Much needed. I've been wanting to do that for years now, and it's been just so busy. But it's finally coming soon. So a shorter domain name. But for now, redicecreations.com, and that will always get you to the site in the future as well. Then we also have redicemembers.com, where we have our membership subscriptions. Obviously, we have 10 years worth of shows and films and videos shows and inside episodes and everything else. It's over 1,000 radio shows there, ton of different topics to dig into. And so if people want to support it, it's just €6 per month, and we have from 3 months up to 2-year subscriptions available. That helps us, of course, to build, not only keep going with the radio show, but actually do the TV show that we have upcoming and planned. And we're going to have all the information about that on the website in probably a week's time from when we're doing this recording, with a bit more information about where people can tune in and stuff like that, and the schedule and things like that. So we're working all of that out right now. There's tons of things we need to get to in regards to that. But yeah, beyond that, I'm on Twitter, Facebook, if people want to connect with me. So just do a search or check it on the website, and we have all the links there. So thank you, gentlemen. Great to be here. Appreciate it.
Excellent. And of course, we'll provide all the relevant links in the show notes to this podcast. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Tune in to Brighton Radio in a few days. So thank you, everyone. Good night.